Hello and welcome to your Fantasy Premier League one-stop shop. I'm your host Stephen Gallagher, world number 3 in points totals over the past 3 seasons. Today we're looking at all the key points for Game Week 20, who to buy, who to sell, fixtures to target, rotations, captaincy and more. Before we begin, I want to apologise for not uploading for the past while over the holiday period. I've been travelling to the US to see my family and we only get to see each other a few times a year, so I was really making the most of the time with them. And then I was travelling around Ireland for a bit for New Year's, and I also picked up a bit of a sickness, so apologies for not uploading, but we're back at it now. If you've been watching on YouTube and have been enjoying the videos, then drop a like and subscribe, and if you're listening on audio, then rate the episode 5 stars if you enjoy. Let's get straight into it, starting with the key points for this game week. Cunha has finally been given his ban, and it looks like he's gotten away with it quite lightly. Only a 2-game ban, and one of those will be served in the FA Cup, so he'll only miss 1 game in the Premier League, and you can hold on to him if you want to, and if you have a good replacement for him on your bench. However, his upcoming fixtures are very tough, and we'll see that in a later section. So he is a sell in my eyes because of his ban and because of the tough upcoming fixtures. If you have him, I would be looking to get rid of him, which leads me to the next key point, which is Cunha Replacements. Looking at this plot of forwards for 7.5 million or less, we're comparing their non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90 against their fixture difficulty rating from an attacking perspective over the next 5 game weeks. And we're looking for players in the top right of this plot who have a good mix of both statistics, and there's 2 standout options off the bat, and that's Mateta and Raul. They're both at different price points, Mateta at 7.2 mil currently and Raul at 5.6. I do prefer Mateta because Raul's minutes aren't certain, with Muniz fighting for that starting spot and in good form, but my favourite option to replace Cunha is actually Wissa. His expected data per 90 is amazing for a player at his price, and he does free up some budget as he's only 6.2 million currently. He plays Southampton next, then Man City and Liverpool at home, which obviously isn't ideal, but we'll see in the rotation section that he does rotate really nicely with Crystal Palace forwards. So to summarise my overall ranking of Cunha replacements, it's Wissa, Mateta, then Raul in that order. On to the injury news and suspensions. For Liverpool, Joe Gomez went off injured in the 30th minute against Leicester. He was replaced by Quansah, who will play until Konate returns, but Konate is soon to return from injury and could even be fit to play in Game Week 20 against Man United. For Arsenal, Timber is suspended for Game Week 20 after picking up his 5th yellow card against Brentford, and Kai Havertz missed that game due to illness, but should be back for the Game Week 20 fixture against Brighton. For Villa, Duran was sent off against Newcastle and will miss Game Week 20 and potentially get a ban and miss more games after that. And then Pau Torres has injured his metatarsal, which could mean he's out for the next few months. For Brighton, Webster could be back soon. Kadioglu has had a setback in his return from injury. Welbeck is back in outdoor training, but there's no timescale for his return yet. Evan Ferguson remains sidelined, and Estupiñán is hoping to recover from his illness shortly. For Newcastle, Fabian Schär is suspended for Game Week 20 and Botman is getting closer to a return from injury. And then finally for Spurs, Udogie is expected to be out for 6 to 10 weeks after picking up a hamstring injury against Wolves. Next up is defences to target using our fixture difficulty ratings and defensive strength ratings, combining the two so we can rank teams on who has the best combination of defensive fixtures and strength over the next 5 game weeks. Top of the rankings is Aston Villa. They've only kept 2 clean sheets this season and they rank 9th for expected goals conceded, so not the best defensive data, and Pau Torres did also just get injured, so that might be a big blow to them defensively. With all that said, their fixtures are amazing. They played Leicester at home next and then Everton away. 2 really good fixtures from a defensive perspective. If you like the look of that, then a short-term punt on someone like Konsa or Digne could be really interesting. Second in the rankings is Fulham, and Anthony Robinson continues to impress. He's racked up 7 assists so far this season, more than any other defender in the game, and Fulham's upcoming fixtures also look great. If you don't have the funds to get Robinson, or if you want to double up on that Fulham defence, Anderson is amazing value at 4.2 million. Now, he's unlikely to get many attacking returns, if any at all, but that price for a Fulham defender with great upcoming fixtures is definitely worth a shout. Third in the rankings is Liverpool. They're tied first for clean sheets this season with Nottingham Forest, with a game in hand as well. Trent is back to his best with 4 attacking returns in the past 5 games. But if you can't afford him and just want to lock in a 90 minutes man in one of the best defences in the league, then Virgil van Dijk is another one to go for. Fourth in the rankings is Brighton. They do play Arsenal in Game Week 20, which isn't the ideal entry point, but after that, the fixtures are good. Ipswich away in 21, Everton at home in 23. Estupiñán is the most attacking defender Brighton have. However, he does cost more and missed the last game due to illness. The safest pick from Brighton is Van Heck. He plays every minute he's available and is cheaper than Estupiñán by 0.6 mil. Fifth and sixth in the rankings is Newcastle and Forest, and they rotate very nicely, as you can see. From Newcastle, Lewis Hall is a great option. He's gone up from 4.3 mil in Game Week 11 to 4.8 mil now, and I think he'll continue to rise given these fixtures for Newcastle and his potential for attack and returns. From Nottingham Forest, there's a few options, but Milenkovic is my favourite from them. He's got great attacking threat from set pieces, and he's still relatively cheap at 4.5 mil. Onto the defender rotations. I've run a model that calculates the optimal defensive rotation based off the fixture difficulties over the next 5 game weeks. Aston Villa and Spurs rank first, but I don't see much appeal in the Spurs defence currently, as they're not keeping clean sheets and they're missing 3 of their starting defenders in Udogie, Romero and Van de Ven. The second best rotation here is Brighton and Fulham. I really like this, as you get Ipswich at home in Game Week 20, Ipswich away in 21, Leicester at home in 22 and Everton at home in 23, which sounds unreal. You can also go for Brighton and Forest instead. You get Wolves away in 20, Ipswich away in 21, Southampton at home in 22 and Everton at home in 23. Another great rotation there. And then another one is Fulham and Newcastle. Probably my favourite rotation. You get Ipswich at home in 20, Wolves at home in 21, Leicester at home in 22 and Southampton away in 23. Next up is attacks to target, using our fixture difficulty ratings and attack and strength ratings. Combine the two so we can rank teams on who has the best upcoming fixtures from an attacking perspective and who has the best attacks as well. First in the rankings is Liverpool, and Mo Salah just continues to haul. He's the best player in the game, probably in the history of the game. If you don't have him yet for whatever reason, then get him in before he costs you like 14 million. Other than Salah, Jota and Diaz are definitely ones to consider, but only if you're content with the odd benching. It is a high risk, high reward kind of play because the benchings will happen, and we've seen it happen in the Liverpool front line this season because they have so many options there with Gakpo and Darwin as well. What I will say is that it's a lot of budget to invest in a player that you're not sure is going to start every week, so do proceed with caution. Second in the rankings is City, and their next 3 fixtures are amazing. West Ham at home in 20, Brentford away in 21 and Ipswich away in 22. As you can see, Erling Haaland is not on the short list of Man City players here. He's just too expensive for the amount of points he's been getting. Foden is on the list, followed by De Bruyne and Savio. I think Foden is probably the best pick here in terms of the minutes. However, Savio could be great value if he continues getting good minutes. And then if De Bruyne played 90 minutes every game, he'd be my favourite Man City pick by far because his expected data is just so good. And in all honesty, I think Man City players are hard to suggest wholeheartedly because of how they've been playing and because of how expensive a lot of them are. But with that being said, I think a punt on one of these players for the next 3 game weeks is worth pointing out, as the fixtures are really good from an attacking perspective. Third in the rankings is Chelsea, and their fixtures aren't actually amazing here. I think their attack and strength rating is carrying them up the rankings because their attack has been so good this season. Cole Palmer, still a great pick, the second best asset in FPL after Mo Salah. The player I wanted to discuss here is Nicholas Jackson, as a lot of people are shipping him out right now, and I can see why. No goal involvements in the past 3 games, and he didn't start against Ipswich, coming on to play just 35 minutes and blocking a lot of people's bench points. So I understand the frustration as an owner myself. However, he still ranks 3rd for XG and expected goal involvement per 90 for forwards after Haaland and Isak. Regarding the benching, Chelsea played 3 games in 9 days there, which is a game every 3 days. So I think the benching against Ipswich was warranted and probably expected. Just trying to manage his load for the more important fixtures, and he's definitely still first choice for striker ahead of Nkunku. If you want to sell Jackson for someone like Isak or to free up funds to afford Salah or Palmer in your midfield, then I completely understand. But otherwise, I think keep it Jackson is the right move for now. Fourth in the rankings is Newcastle. They've had a real resurgence of form as a team, and Isak has been absolutely firing in the goals. I expect that to continue, and I also expect Gordon to come into a lot of our thinking now. He's only had 1 blank in the past 7 games, consistently getting 1 goal or assist every game, so The double up on Newcastle attack with these two fellas is definitely a viable option going forward. Spurs fixtures aren't actually great here, but Crystal Palace's fixtures are fantastic. And Eze has finally scored. He hadn't scored since game week 3, so hopefully he finds his form now, and these fixtures are a likely time to do so. With Crystal Palace playing better as a whole, I also expect the likes of Mateta and Sarr to grab a couple of returns over these next few game weeks. Finally, 7th on the list and with the best upcoming fixtures according to our model is Fulham, and the best options for them are Raul and Iwobi. Only thing to keep an eye out for is Raul's minutes, with Muniz knocking on the door for that starting spot. Onto the attacker rotations, there's a lot of Fulham here, as you can see. The model really likes Fulham's upcoming fixtures. The first rotation is Fulham and Spurs, so something like Raul or Iwobi and Johnson and Kulusevski, but you wouldn't be playing the Spurs players until game week 23 according to this model. You can also rotate Palace and Brentford attackers. You get Southampton away, Leicester away, West Ham away, Brentford at home, then Spurs at home, so a lot of great options for rotations in the attack. On to the stats review, where we analyse the best performing players in every position statistically and combine that with the fixture difficulty ratings. Players in red are the most expensive and players in green are the cheapest. For goalkeepers, we're looking at expected goals conceded per 90 against the defensive fixture difficulty rating. Martinez at Villa has the best mix of upcoming fixtures and expected goals conceded. Leno is another good option going forward, and then Verbruggen is probably the best cheap option out here going forward. For defenders, we're looking at non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90 against the defensive fixture difficulty rating multiplied by the team's defensive strength. Clearly, Aston Villa have the best upcoming fixtures and Digne has the best attacking data from their defenders. Fulham also have good upcoming fixtures, with Robinson the best option there. Then Trent at Liverpool, a clear outlier with his attacking data way ahead of everyone else. And Brighton defenders, another good option with Estupiñán the most attacking defender. Onto the midfielders, we're looking at non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90 against the attacking fixture difficulty ratings. Fulham players ranking on top here. Adama has the best expected data, but his minutes aren't always certain. Crystal Palace have good fixtures too. Sarr and Eze the ones to go for from them. From Man City, it looks like De Bruyne and Savio are producing the best expected data. And from Newcastle, Barnes and Murphy are putting up great data. And then there's Salah so far ahead of the rest. And with great fixtures coming up, if you don't have Salah yet, get him in now. Onto the forwards, as you can see, Raul at Fulham has the best fixtures, followed by Mateta at Palace. Then Isak and Haaland on top of each other here. They have essentially the same non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90, so clearly Haaland isn't worth the extra funds over Isak. Let's remove Haaland from the plot as he's skewing the price colouring system here. We can see Isak is the most expensive of the rest of the forwards, but he's still worth it based off his form and how good his data is. On to captaincy. In the first spot, I have Salah against Man United at home. His last blank was in game week 7. He's had 12 double-digit hauls this season already, and he loves to score against Man United too. He's my number one pick, followed by Watkins against Leicester at home. He's got the best fixture this game week, and he's fighting for his starting spot with Duran. He's got something to prove here, and I can see him bagging a few goals. In third place, I have Haaland against West Ham at home. Again, targeting the fixture here. He's not in the best of form, but we all know what he can do when he's on it. In fourth place, I have Isak against Spurs away. This man is just in great form. His last blank was in game week 13. He's got 8 goals and 2 assists in 6 games, and Spurs defence has been leaky at the best of times, and with all the injuries they've had this season, I've got Isak in here at 4th. And finally, in 5th place, I have Palmer against Palace away. I had to include him on this list because he can just go absolutely nuclear against anyone. We're never surprised when we see him bag a hat-trick, and I'm sure Palace will be looking at every way to stop him. On to my Game Week 19 review. Not a good game week for me, 68 points overall and a game week rank of 5.2 million, down to 386k overall. It was, however, a great game week for my bench. 9 points from João Pedro and 12 points for Hall on the bench. The annoying thing here is that I transferred out Semenyo for Sarr so that I could bench João Pedro. Sarr did nothing, Semenyo got an assist, and João Pedro got 2 assists, so really unfortunate outcome for me there. My defence was also quite poor. I went for the double Arsenal defence and they didn't return me any favours at all. And I also had no playing goalkeeper this week as Fabianski was injured and Sanchez was benched. In terms of the positives, I captained Salah, which worked out well again, as it usually does. Rodgers got a nice 11 points with a goal and assist against Brighton. Isak scored and Foden assisted, so still some positives to take away from this week. Let's take a look at my Game Week 20 plans because, as you can see, there are few red arrows to deal with here. I currently don't have a playing bench this game week. Fabianski suffered a head injury and will be out for a while. Joe Gomez injured his hamstring, so will also be out for a while. Then Rodgers and Timber are both serving a 1-match ban for their yellow card accumulation. Really poor timing for Rodgers to get his 5th yellow, since he would have been playing Leicester at home this game week, which would have been really nice. And now I have to play João Pedro against Arsenal at home, so not ideal. I also have to play Lewis Hall against Spurs away, which is not ideal because of that Timber suspension. My current plan is to deal with Joe Gomez, because while Rodgers and Timber are out, they'll be back next week. We can't say the same for Joe Gomez. To find his replacement, I've analysed the defenders worth 5.7 million or less. Digne, Robinson and Estupiñán show up best here, and then Hall, Milenkovic and Porro also have good attacking data but not as good upcoming fixtures. I've already got Hall and Robinson, so another thing I want to look at is which defenders rotate well with the defenders that I already own. So I use the optimal rotation model, but add the condition that the teams listed must include Arsenal, Newcastle and Fulham, as I'm not getting rid of Gabriel, Hall or Robinson. And the first suggestion is to get a Villa defender to rotate like Digne or Konsa, then a Brighton defender like Estupiñán or Van Heck, then a Forest defender like Milenkovic or Aina. And when I consider all these options, the most appealing one to me is a Nottingham Forest defender because of how good they've been defensively. And also I really like the look of Milenkovic with its attack and threat from set pieces. So let's go to FPL.team and see how he'd fit into the team. This is how we're currently lined up. Once we add Milenkovic in, we'd bench Hall against Spurs away. Then in Game Week 21, we could do Timber to Munoz. That way we get Munoz against Leicester away and line up like this. Then from Game Week 22 on, our defenders would rotate really nicely. We wouldn't have to make a defensive transfer for a while, barring any injuries. The only thing here is that I'm left with 2 million in the bank and not really sure where to invest it, but it could just mean buying Arnie's slot in Game Week 24 using the assistant manager chip, and I wouldn't have to use a transfer to get the funds to get him in. So I really like the look of this. Another option I have is to get in Trent by doing Timber and Gomez to Trent and Anderson. Another really viable option that I am definitely considering. I'm not 100% locked into anything yet, so follow me on Twitter at FPL Gallagher to see what I end up going for. That's all for today, folks. Go ahead and drop a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and rate 5 stars on audio. Until next time, guys, have a good one.